I find it very challenging to keep my few relationship, um, which with friends that I love them,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, but who are not interested in
Right.
awakening.
Right.
It's really challenging to keep um, to keep evolving in an environment who is not always supportive.
Right. And you know what you're touching on here is awakened compassion. And I define that in this chapter is
Hmm.
caring more about the spiritual development of the other person than you
Hmm.
do about the personal requirements in the relationship.
Hmm.
This is a
True.
huge shift.
True.
It's a huge, I mean, the difference between that and you know, as Pema Chodron calls it, idiot compassion, where we listen for the sake of ourselves. We
Right.
fundamentally don't care about the other person because we want them to stop suffering because we don't want to suffer.
Uh huh.
It's not because we want them to stop suffering because that's the reason. So the you know, if you go back to the beginning, the ego will try to prove to us that we are alive by giving us a turbulent psychological and emotional state, right? So it keeps the subjective state moving and busy.
Hmm.
So what better place to find that than in a relationship?
Hmm.
So when two individuals come together and let's say they fall in love with each other's shadows
Hmm.
and they're looking to affirm their self-images by compensating for what they're lacking, what inevitably happens is a turbulent emotional state, and that's called conflict in the relationship. And this is perfect for the ego. So the first thing in developing awakened relationships
Hmm.
is to determine which relationships are relevant to your awakening and which ones are not. Because this is one of the things I discovered over, you know, my 15 years of looking at this, is that the ego likes to jumble or mush all of our relationships together, right?
Hmm.
The ego will try to convince us that every relationship is relevant, even the one that you have with the girl at the coffee shop and the guy who delivers the mail and the person who cleans your house. These are all, they're all relevant. So I make a different point in the uncommon path, and what I say is that the only relationships that are relevant to your awakening are ones in which you spend a significant amount of time.
Hmm.
The point of this chapter is not to abandon certain individuals. We just simply can't do that.
Hmm.
If someone that you know and love is not interested in awakening, then that's totally fine.
Hmm.
So it's up to you to be more aware in that relationship and also look at the effect that that relationship is having on your ability to express your own awakening. So what you're doing is that you're saying to the ego mind, you're saying, listen, I know that you like this relationship because it feeds you,
Hmm.
but I, meaning I, the choosing faculty,
Yeah.
I'm going to override you because I, consciousness, are no longer interested in sustaining unnecessary conflict. And this is pretty easy to do for anyone who's listening or is just look at your existing relationships, look at the ones that you spend the most time in,
Hmm.
and determine how much time you spend in those relationships. Now, the ego particularly hates this because it's pretty logical, it's pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
It's very hard to avoid the fact that I spend 2 hours a week, you know, gabbing with my friends about whatever I might be talking about.
Hmm.
So the first step in awakening relationships is to determine which ones are relevant and which ones are not, and this is the way to do it.
And you're talking
So
about, yeah, you're talking
go,
about relevant for your awakening.
relevant for your awakening because
Hmm.
let's say that you are a person who
Hmm.
is genuinely interested in transcending ego
Hmm.
and let's say saving the world. How about that? Taking responsibility for the future of humanity.
Yeah.
Okay. The people that are going to be your allies are the people who are interested in engaging with you at that level.
Hmm.
Okay. So the first step in identifying those individuals is determining which relationships are currently relevant. So let's say an average person, let's say you have 15 or 20 people that you spend a lot of time with, family or friends, or maybe a spouse or something like this, or
Okay.
children even.
Mm-hmm.
The person that you spend the most time in conscious relatedness. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I make a distinction about conscious relatedness. This does not include the time that you would spend sleeping beside somebody,
Okay.
because no, seriously, because a lot of
Yeah.
people will say, well, I think my wife is my most important relationship. And when they really look at it, they actually spend more time with their boss than they do with their wife, because
Uh-huh.
they count the time they spend sleeping with somebody. And that's not relevant to anything because both people are unconscious.
True, true, yeah. Uh-huh.
So you look at the time you spend and then you just do a little bit of math. And interestingly enough, the person at the top of that list, that is the relationship that is going to have the most profound effect on your ability to express your awakening for the sake of humanity. Now, when you start to look at your friends and your family or your boss or the people that you love
Mm-hmm.
from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to shift things a little bit.